A sudden surge of awareness hits. Consciousness returns not in a familiar bed, but on a galloping warhorse. The armored rider realizes with a start that they were already charging ahead. Gripping the reins, their eyes scan the strange cobblestone street. A question forms, a seed of disbelief and confusion. Wait, is this really happening? Before them, a breathtaking sight steals their breath. A grand castle towers over a town engulfed in flames and chaos. The scene feels eerily familiar, prompting a whispered acronym of recognition. The name echoes in their mind, Echoes of Eternity, widely known as EO. It's a legendary medieval fantasy RPG. Its epic tale of light versus darkness spans 2,000 years, still celebrated 3 years post-release. The game's complexity is vast, with countless items and character classes, ensuring that even after thousands of hours, mastery remains elusive. The memory is vivid, belonging to someone who played the game extensively. Mistaking its opening scene is impossible, yet something feels deeply amiss. The realism is staggering. It's not just the visuals of crumbling, burning structures, the crackling flames, the distant screams. Everything feels terrifyingly authentic. A thought cuts through the sensory overload. If this is truly the world of EO, why are they experiencing it from this perspective? This isn't the protagonist's view. Looking down, they see only the armored neck of their steed. No hero leads the charge ahead. The horrifying realization begins to settle in. It's almost as if they are. A soldier's voice breaks the internal spiral. "Captain, your orders!" The armored rider turns, eyes wide with shock. This blonde beauty, Natalia Norfolk, vice captain of the Holy Empire of Eterna's 3rd Special Forces Unit, a character they've encountered countless times in the game. The soldier, noticing their captain's stunned silence, grows frantic. "See, Captain, who? Get it together. Who else could it be but you?" Confusion takes over. This can't be real. He frantically questions what's happening and, more importantly, why he's now in the body of a man named Silva. He desperately tries to think, to piece together how any of this could have occurred. A memory surfaces. He recalls walking home after stocking up on energy drinks at a convenience store, ready to start a new game. He saw a woman about to be struck by a truck and instinctively jumped to save her, taking the hit himself. The realization hits him. He died in that accident and was reincarnated. But why as Silva, of all characters, instead of the game's hero? He knows the character well. Silva Pierce, captain of the Holy Empire of Eternia's 3rd Special Forces Unit, famed as the kingdom's strongest knight. At the story's beginning, he was an impressive character on paper, boasting cheat-tier stats and numerous powerful abilities. But there's one major issue that ruins everything. His thought is interrupted by an urgent shout from one of his soldiers, demanding orders. He commands everyone to eliminate the monsters in town and protect the survivors, declaring he will personally take down the source of the attack. The troops respond with a unified cry, "May the Silver Lance bless us!" before scattering. He accepts this new reality. This is now his job. According to the game's plot, the current event involves the protagonist rescuing the heroine, while his task is to eliminate the boss behind the attack. Summoned by his thoughts, 2 large, screeching avian monsters swoop down into the town square. He urges his horse forward instinctively. Just a moment ago, he was a gamer living peacefully in the real world, but now, facing these monstrous beasts, he knows he has no choice but to fight. He strikes the creature with overwhelming force. A simple swing of his weapon obliterates it entirely. A thought flashes through his mind, a stunning realization of the immense power he now possesses. This incredible strength isn't even a special skill. It's just a basic attack. He recalls the game's mechanics. While other characters start at level 10, Silva Pierce begins at a staggering level 60 against the low-level monsters swarming the prologue. He's in a completely different league. With this vast power disparity, he knows for certain that the lesser creatures stand no chance. His attention shifts to the true source of the invasion, a massive dimensional rift tearing through space, spewing forth monsters. He understands this is the Special Forces' top priority. Destroying it would mean the end of the prologue, but witnessing it in such vivid detail is far more unsettling than any screen. He begins searching for the key to its destruction, scanning the chaos until he finally spots his target. He knows the rule. To close a rift, one must defeat its guardian, the boss monster. Taking that creature down would fulfill his role in this opening chapter. Despite facing a beast several times his size, he feels no fear. A strange confidence fills him. He is Silva, inhabiting a body and mind seasoned by countless battles. More importantly, as a player, he possesses ultimate knowledge. He knows exactly how powerful this character truly is. As the beast lets out a deafening roar, he charges forward, his grin widening with exhilaration as his weapon slams into its hardened heart. He unleashes a named technique, the Divine Piercing Strike, a devastating blow that tears through the monster's defenses. The strike lands perfectly. With a final shudder, the massive beast collapses to the ground, defeated. He stands over it, task completed. He stands firm on fractured ground. Battle won, but his mind already on a far greater challenge. One significant problem still looms. That problem is his unchangeable fate. According to the game's original story, at the climax of Chapter 1, Silva is destined to die. He sacrifices himself to allow the protagonist to escape collapsing ruins, an unavoidable death event that no player has ever found a way to prevent. Though dedicated fans have petitioned for a DLC survival route, their pleas went unanswered. Ultimately, everyone accepted Silva's fate. He would never reach Chapter 2. But now that he has become Silva, he refuses to accept that fate. Having already died once in the real world, he won't die again here. As this resolve solidifies, a subordinate with glasses rushes to his side, asking with concern if the captain is all right. He looks up, his focus entirely on the mission's conclusion. He announces that the rift has been closed and demands to know the situation on their end. Natalia Norfolk reports back immediately. The monsters in town have been eliminated, and they are guiding survivors to safety. She praises him, saying his handling of the rift was incredible. Another soldier adds that the protagonist is safe as well, much to the relief of the nearby civilians. Meanwhile, in a completely different location, the player, now inhabiting Silva's body, slumps at a desk. He is in the 3rd Special Forces Unit headquarters in the royal capital Aurora, feeling utterly lost, wondering what he is supposed to do. He stares at a translucent interface before him. Despite the realism of everything else, this part still feels like a game. He grimaces, realizing he has taken over the character of Silva. The screen displays Silver statistics, strength 281, endurance 270. These are completely broken cheat tier stats for this early stage, typical for a powerful character introduced early in a game. He leans back, contemplating the truth. Right now, as Silva Pierce, he might be among the world's strongest, but he knows facing his scripted death event alone is simply impossible. He leans back, a troubling thought crossing his mind. Should he just run away from it all? But that path is impossible. According to the game's unchangeable laws, if you flee, either the protagonist or the heroine will die at the end of the first chapter, leading to the world's doom. He grips his hair in frustration. The situation feels utterly unwinnable, with only 1 month left on the clock. As he stands lost in thought, a voice from the doorway interrupts him, politely asking for a moment. He looks up to see Natalia. She salutes crisply, stating she has come to report on the follow-up procedure for their last mission. She begins with the unidentified girl rescued by the Tangent Unit, and he recognizes this moment as pivotal in the original story. His mind races, recalling the plot. The protagonist is actually the main heroine, Leia. She will soon awaken and escape the barracks, pursued by the sub-hero, Kyle, and the sub-heroine, Mia. According to the script, Silva himself isn't supposed to appear again until the final event. All he has to do is wait. As Natalia concludes her report, asking if he has any concerns, he jolts back to the present. He can't just follow the script. He needs a plan. He dismisses her, stating there's nothing in particular and that she has done well. Natalia acknowledges his words and turns to leave. Watching her depart, a new thought ignites in his mind. Even if Silva alone isn't enough to change his fate, perhaps there's another way. "Wait a minute," he suddenly calls out. She halts at the door, turning back toward his desk. "Yes?" she asks, her expression curious. "Did you think of something?" Natalia stands at attention, ready. "If it's something important, please don't hesitate to tell me." He meets her gaze, his expression serious. "It's important," he confirms, then pauses. "Actually, it's not in order. I have a favor to ask of you." Leaning forward with a sharp, intense grin, he makes a shocking request. "Take off your clothes." Natalia can only stare back, her mind blank with disbelief, uttering a single, confused, She stares in stunned silence, her eyes swirling with disbelief. Sweat beads on her face as she asks her captain to repeat his utterly incomprehensible command to take off her clothes. Her initial surprise transforms into a rigid sense of obligation, though she questions the need to disrobe. If it's for the unit, she's ready to comply. Silva concedes her point, promising to clarify his reasoning step by step. He starts by saying that, truthfully, he has always believed she would excel in a different position. Natalia, still bewildered, inquires how a new position relates to her undressing. His explanation is direct and jarring. Her new position is that of a dancer. The word lingers and Natalia can only echo it in shocked disbelief. He expands on this, recognizing her success as a knight leading the unit, but now he insists she will shine as a dancer. The Chronicles of the World mention that the dancer is one of the classes present in the ocean realm. This class acts as a support shaman, using dances and prayers to channel nature's energy to allies. While most abilities consume MP linked to the spirit stat, the dancer class uses HP instead. For Natalia, whose spirit stat is the lowest but vitality is high, this class perfectly compensates for her greatest flaw. She glares at him, her face a mask of horror and confusion. Is this some kind of joke? His tone is unwavering as he insists he's serious. Her expression shifts to one of painful realization. She asks if this means her role as a knight is over. Before he can respond, she interrupts, stating that if it's the captain's decision, she will comply, and he should have just said so plainly. Silva begins to object, realizing she has misunderstood gravely. But she spins around, her voice cracking with despair. She exclaims that she admired him, wanting to emulate him, which is why she followed him. If he no longer needs her, she declares with finality that she has no reason to live and will end her life right then. She screams for him to let her go, threatening to step outside and die if she's truly worthless. Silva, taken aback, realizes his critical mistake. Her extremely low spirit stat makes her one of the most mentally fragile individuals he knows. She confronts him, asking if he's telling her to abandon her sword and flaunt her body because she doesn't meet his knightly expectations. Silva vehemently refutes this, shouting that no one has labeled her useless. He insists he's asking because they need her strength, swearing an oath on the Silver Lance. The name gives her pause. The Silver Lance symbolizes their unit. To swear upon it is a ritual more binding than any contract, inspiring the entire unit to charge into battle with unwavering determination. It's essentially a form of brainwashing. Having made such a serious vow, he implores her again. He acknowledges her attachment to the lance and apologizes, but insists he's asking this for the unit's benefit. Natalia, now calmer, admits that becoming a dancer feels overwhelming since she's never trained for it. Silva reassures her, promising she has the talent and urging her to trust his judgment. His intense gaze locks onto hers, and after a moment of contemplation, she relents. She gets it. With her consent secured, Silva promptly presents her with a new outfit. Natalia accepts the role as his command, but stares at the clothing in disbelief. He seems oblivious, stating that since she agreed, there shouldn't be an issue. She holds the outfit, voicing her doubts. She wonders if it will suit her, admitting she's never seen herself as particularly feminine. Silva brushes off her concerns, bluntly stating it will look great because she has an incredibly attractive body. He guarantees it will suit her. Setting aside the unit's needs, she asks what he, as her captain, personally thinks. His demeanor shifts to one of wild enthusiasm. Leaning in, he grins widely and declares he wants to see. A short while later, her voice calls from the doorway. She apologizes for the delay as Silva turns, his expression one of surprise. She stands before him, having changed as ordered. Now dressed in a revealing flower-adorned dancer's outfit, she looks at him uncertainly, asking if her new look is acceptable. As she stands before him, a broad, triumphant grin spreads across Silva's face. He declares her appearance flawless, confirming this was yet another reason he insisted she become a dancer. He knows from experience that a character's seriousness correlates with an embarrassment coefficient that can enhance their support skills. For someone as earnest as Natalia, the effect is remarkable, boosting her stats by 1.5. Additionally, her unique skill will now be classified as a dancer ability, making the class change even more beneficial. His optimization efforts aren't complete. He moves through the barracks, leveraging his extensive knowledge to reassign roles for maximum effectiveness. He instructs one surprise soldier to become a sorcerer, mentally tracking his progress. Just 2 more to go. He bursts through a door to find the last 2. A memory resurfaces. In his previous life, he had played this very game obsessively. Before him stand Kyle Transient, the game's original protagonist, and Mia Hawkeye, its supporting hero. That deep knowledge is his greatest asset. He had even conquered the game's highest difficulty hardcore racing event, a feat that showcased the immense advantages of being silver peers. With such experience, he's confident he won't fail or die in this world. Fueled by this conviction, his expression hardens. He vows to himself that he will fight until the very end. Inside a sparsely furnished room, a young man with spiky light-colored hair enters, announcing his arrival. He finds another young man, Kyle, standing in shock, while a girl, Mia, lies in bed. The newcomer greets them, telling Kyle to stay seated as he must be tired. His gaze shifts to the girl in bed, asking if the survivor has awakened yet. He checks on Mia, noting she doesn't seem to have any serious injuries, so she should have woken up by now. He adds that the doctors found nothing wrong and she appears to be fine. He concludes with some certainty that she will eventually awaken. Brescian's expression hardens, his eyes narrowing with grim realization. He thinks to himself that, of course, he knows this young man's true identity. The eternal monologue reveals a hidden history. The girl is Raya Eternia, a descendant of the founding family of the Holy Kingdom of Eternia. She is also the reincarnation of the sage who sealed an evil god away 2,000 years ago. Kyle, he knows, is the main character of this tale, the reincarnation of the knight who protected that very sage. They have both been reborn to confront the evil god that is beginning to resurrect. But for now, they lack the memories and powers of their past lives. The stakes are impossibly high. To break the seal, the evil god has dispatched monsters from the rift to eliminate them. Their ultimate goal is to restore their lost memories and powers. If either Kyle or Raya dies, the evil god will resurrect, leading to the world's destruction. His knowledge is why he cannot simply abandon his duty and flee. He must stay to protect them, resolving to prepare for the inevitable event of Silva's demise. He steels his resolve. Turning to the pair, he announces that he came to speak with them. He focuses on Kyle, stating he has something he wants to give him. Kyle looks back, puzzled, asking what it could be. He presents the shaft of a long silver spear. Kyle's eyes widen as he recognizes the weapon. Now fully alert, she gasps in shock. She identifies it as the captain's spear, the very symbol of their troop. Kyle recoils, shouting that there's no way he can accept such a thing. He foresees an upcoming trial, an event that will force Kyle and Raya to flee once she awakens. They will encounter countless perilous situations and formidable monsters. He is certain that with this silver spear, even Kyle, despite his low status, will be able to face the challenge. He continues to press the spear toward Kyle, urging him to take it. But Kyle, with wide, panicked eyes, pushes back against the weapon, insisting he can't possibly accept it. The man physically recoils, his hands flat against the spear shaft, creating distance between himself and the offered weapon. He acknowledges Kyle's feelings, but insists there's no time for hesitation. He tries to downplay its significance, calling it just a spear, but then shifts tactics, declaring it a captain's order. To refuse, he warns, would be a breach of military protocol. With the spear now in Kyle's hands, he turns to Mia for support, asking for her opinion. A flustered Mia shyly agrees that it suits him well. "See," he says, turning back to Kyle, "you look great with it." Kyle looks on in dismay. He declares his next intention to address Mia, her eyes widening in surprise as she questions if she is also to be involved. He presents a small cross-like emblem to her, placing it in her open hands and asking her to accept it. She looks down at the object, recognizing it with a questioning tone. "Captain?" He confirms her unspoken thought with a decisive gesture, announcing that as of today, she is the new captain. Mia's shock is palpable. She immediately protests, exclaiming that there's no way she can fulfill such a role. But his plan is already in motion. He knows that Mia Hawkeye, Kyle's childhood friend, is one of the story's heroines. Though her power is challenging to use early on, at higher levels, her unique skill with a bow and spirits makes her one of the best support characters available. There's a mechanism that grants captains bonus experience points, and he intends to use it to level her up, all to prevent Silva's fated death. Despite her continued flustered refusals, he simply smiles and encourages her to try placing the insignia on her shoulder. Her gaze drops as she explains her reasoning. She has only just joined the troop and barely learned the names of her fellow soldiers. The responsibility feels overwhelming and undeserved. He stands frozen as the player attempts to reassure her. He explains that he managed the role, so she will be fine too. He tells her to simply give orders as captain and leave the tedious office work to Natalia. He continues, stating that this decision was not made of his own volition. Mia reacts in shock as he claims it is the will of the Eternal Tree, as written in a prophetic book. In the Holy Empire of Eternia, the Eternal Tree is revered not just as the nation's symbol, but as God itself. Thus, the Eternal Tree's will is considered the highest form of order and absolute command that a soldier must follow without question. The player internally admits that this story sounds odd even to him. In truth, it was a decree given to him by the Throne Maiden that morning. Then his expression hardens. He knows it's all a lie. There is no such thing as God's will, but he decides they don't need to know that. With the others, Natalia asks Kyle what they should do. Kyle resigns himself to the situation, telling Stramia to do her best as captain since a prophecy cannot be defied. He then turns to the player, asking the former captain what his plans are now. The player encourages Natalia, assuring her that her talent will adequately support Mia. With a confident smile, he declares he's considering a little getaway. As he gets ready to depart, he chuckles at their naivety. Natalia protests slightly, but he reassures himself they'll manage. His mind shifts to the real challenge. Can the army strengthen enough in the 4 weeks before Silva's demise? He understands this outcome will significantly shape his future. 3 key goals form in his mind. First on his list is to enhance his own strength by leveling up and upgrading his armor. He muses that Silva's skills are already formidable, making further training at this stage less effective. Thus, boosting his own power becomes a secondary advantage. Next, he aims to elevate the other characters. He notes that aside from Silva, the rest of the team is underleveled and poorly equipped, so he anticipates substantial growth. For now, leveling up is their only route to power. He also realizes that if someone like him, capable of swiftly defeating weak foes, were to join them, it would skew the experience point distribution. He ponders his next goal. With initial preparations complete, the third aim of this journey is to seek out new allies, as there are numerous potential candidates. He knew that, depending on the approach taken, it was feasible to recruit individuals with exceptional skills even in the early phases of the story. Suddenly, a frantic cry of no shattered the air. It was Silva Pierce, who had been strategizing the best way to secure strong allies quickly. He realized he needed to avoid unnecessary distractions and navigate multiple storylines simultaneously. This interruption was unwelcome. He pushed through the thick underbrush, heading toward the source of the disturbance. He halted abruptly as a woman's voice rang out, begging for assistance. Without a second thought, he instructed her to stay where she was. Before he could act further, she was yanked violently from behind. Her scream was abruptly silenced. His eyes widened as he recognized her assailants, goblins. He recalled the lore from the game Yoi. There were no female goblins, so they abducted young human women for reproduction. Such a grotesque act was never depicted in the game, but here was the horrifying reality. This was life, not a game. The woman screamed in terror as the creatures began tearing at her clothing. Silva found himself paralyzed by a moral dilemma. In the game, he would have ignored this, taking the most efficient route. But this was not a game. He stood firm, his resolve solidified. He couldn't abandon her. With grim determination, he charged into the fray. His sword gleamed as it cleanly severed the head of one goblin, igniting his furious counterattack. He sliced through the remaining goblins, his blade a storm of steel. The creatures fell before his relentless onslaught, their bodies strewn across the forest floor. With the last goblin defeated, he turned to the woman he had saved. She looked up at him, her face streaked with dirt and tears as he knelt beside her, gently asking if she was okay. She leaned against him, finding solace in his presence after the harrowing experience. He stood vigilant, sword at the ready, a silent guardian in the stillness that followed. Her initial shock morphed into confusion. She inquired about his identity and their location, her voice quivering. He simply introduced himself as a passerby who had dealt with the monsters. As she stuttered in realization that he had saved her, he glanced at her status, internally regretting the time this detour had cost. His gaze sharpened as he absorbed the details. Her status was alarmingly weak. He had briefly considered recruiting her if she had any strength, but now he recognized the truth. She was merely an NPC, a non-player character. As he turned to leave, she called out, begging him to wait. She expressed her gratitude profusely and insisted on repaying him, claiming that failing to do so would tarnish her reputation as a merchant. He brushed off her offer, stating it was unnecessary. He was in a rush and urged her to exit the forest so his efforts wouldn't be in vain. She reached out, her voice pleading, but he continued walking. He left her alone in the clearing, prioritizing his mission. Later, riding a horse, he crested a hill that overlooked a vast city. A colossal coliseum dominated the skyline. He felt a sense of relief that, despite the delay, he had arrived on schedule. This was the land of Fist, one of the kingdom's most significant cities, celebrated as a sacred site for martial arts. Even in the game's early stages, it was an accessible location offering unique opportunities, though it had no direct link to the main storyline. He stood framed in a grand, shadowy archway, his purpose clear in his mind. He had come to this city for a specific reason. He stood before a roaring audience, his name resonating throughout the arena. Silva Pierce whispers circulated among the crowd, identifying him as a mysterious assassin from the royal capital. Yet his thoughts remained focused on one goal: to gain wealth and fame here. In the realm of IOE, a statistic known as fame exists directly linked to one's reputation. It increases to unlock better discounts and special quests. While the main story offers its own path, the best side quest for earning fame lies in the arena, a true test of rising through one's own strength. After the latest match is announced to the cheering crowd, Silva appears as a young, silver-haired noble who seems to have materialized from thin air. For him, a victory of this scale is a mere formality. Following his triumph, an official congratulates him on a job well done and hands over the reward money for the day's contest. The reward from the fight is random, and he receives an item called the Toe of the Great Runner. He finds it neither impressive nor disappointing. More importantly, he now possesses a pouch of coins, which he deems more than sufficient for his next venture. His destination is a gambler's paradise, a place of fistfights by day and high stakes by night, the casino known as Fortune. A woman in a bunny outfit greets the guests, but he has come here with a singular goal. That goal is straightforward: to make money. Dice roll across the felt tables as stacks of chips are won and lost. He sits at a table, observing the game's flow. He muses that this particular game isn't meant to be a money-making venture, but its realistic nature offers an exception, a perfect chance for all-out gambles. The game is blackjack. The rules are incredibly simple. Get as close to 21 as possible without exceeding it. With a confident smirk, he makes his choice. The night is still young, and he's determined to rake in the cash. He announces his move and stands. As the sun rises over the city walls, he exits the casino, a heavy sack of winnings slung over his shoulder. He reflects on his good fortune and takes his leave. His guaranteed method for victory: card counting. The game was designed to be as realistic as possible, which meant it had exploitable weaknesses. He had already met his target for the night. He found it amusing that, unlike in the real world, the casinos here lacked countermeasures, allowing anyone with enough time to build a fortune. As he prepared to leave, a commotion at the entrance caught his eye. A young woman was desperately arguing with a staff member, explaining that her outfit didn't meet the dress code. Suddenly, she spotted him, her face lighting up with recognition. "It's the super strong guy from earlier," she exclaimed, rushing toward him and asking if he remembered. He initially pretended not to know her, claiming she must have confused him with someone else. But she was persistent, insisting she would never forget the man who saved her from the goblins. He sighed, realizing she was far more tenacious than he had expected. The young woman admitted her embarrassment over the situation, but was determined not to remain indebted. His expression shifted to surprise as he inquired how she managed to travel safely. She beamed, explaining that she simply followed the trail of defeated monsters he had left behind, which made her journey remarkably easy. Despite her overwhelming gratitude, he remained dismissive. He told her that if all she wanted was a simple thank you, she should be satisfied and leave, as he was in a hurry. He considered that perhaps she had just been fortunate, the scent of goblin blood from their first encounter masking her presence from other monsters. She then revealed the true reason for her persistence, crying out that the staff wouldn't let her into the casino. She begged him for help, calling it discrimination. Annoyed, he pointed to the rules posted at the entrance. A tire must be worth at least 10,000 G to enter. The girl protested, saying such clothes would bankrupt her, but he bluntly told her to give up. Rules were rules. Her hopes were instantly crushed. "No way," she whispered, her shoulders slumping in defeat. She had traveled so far with dreams of getting rich quickly. Seeing her dejection, he asked a simple question. Why did she need money so desperately? She looked up at him, momentarily puzzled. She then recounted her story, explaining that her dream was to open her own store in the capital. She had left her hometown at 20 with this ambition, only to be immediately attacked by goblins, and then barred from the very place she hoped would fund her dream. As he listened to her tale of misfortune, he internally questioned her plan to get rich through gambling, wondering if she was foolish. Yet he also sensed a strange honesty and determination in her, and a thought began to form. Perhaps she could be of use. He looked down at the young woman, a slight smile on his lips, and informed her that she would have to earn it. She could only stammer in surprise. She pressed him for a reason, admitting her desire for the money, but questioning why he would assist her. He simply replied that it was a whim. He even asked for her name. The young woman eagerly introduced herself as Ramaphiris from Maytane village, placing herself under his care. As they walked together down a stone corridor, he began to outline his plan. She inquired about his plans to earn money in such a place, and he confidently stated he would do so by battling in the renowned arena. A light bulb went off for her. He wanted her as his corner assistant. Excitedly, she accepted, proudly claiming her towel-throwing skills. He quickly dismissed her assumption, insisting she wasn't grasping the situation. Puzzled, she asked what he actually needed from her. In response, he handed her a hefty sack of coins. His instructions were straightforward: take it all and place bets on him. Struggling with the weight, she exclaimed how heavy it felt. He calmly revealed that the sack held around 2 million G, cautioning her not to drop it. She was taken aback, shrieking in disbelief, questioning if he had truly won it all at the casino. He snapped at her, calling her foolish and ordering her to keep her voice down about the amount. He then issued a final command: bet on him for the next 3 matches, and don't lose the money before then. Terrified, she could only nod. He observed as Roma stammered, confirming she understood her assignment. With a worried expression, she then asked who he would be facing in the upcoming match. His calm response sent a wave of panic through her. He was up against the Grandmaster of the arena. Roma's eyes widened in fear as she exclaimed it was madness, demanding to know why he would take such a risk. She elaborated on her fear, explaining that the Grandmaster was Tyron the Wicked, a man who had remained undefeated for 3 years. Even she, a simple villager, was aware of his terrifying reputation. Her warnings became more urgent. She insisted he couldn't go through with it, that he could die. She described Tyron as a true villain, running the city's slave and drug trades, a man who would cheat to win. Silva, however, just smiled, explaining that Tyron's notoriety was exactly why the betting odds would be so favorable. He assured her not to worry, as he was far more accustomed to dealing with men like Tyron. Later in the arena, an announcer declared Silva the victor after he took down a top-ranked fighter in an instant. As the announcer attempted to interview him, Silva snatched the microphone, introducing himself to the cheering crowd as a mysterious rising star, then expressed his disappointment, claiming the fighters he faced were weaker than goblins. He declared he had come from the capital specifically to find worthy opponents. He continued his speech, openly ridiculing the Grandmaster, misremembering his name as the Wild Bald Muscle Man, and questioning his undefeated status. His gaze swept the crowd, landing on a woman with cat-like ears, remarking that she looked like a fairy tale creature, perfect for a champion. He boldly told her not to be afraid and to join him, provoking another spectator who shouted at him to stop the harassment. A provocation that hit home. While Silva wore a confident, challenging smirk, Tyron the Wicked observed from a distance, his face twisted in a furious snarl. In response to this insult, heavy, furious footsteps echoed down a stone corridor, signaling an impending confrontation. Later, in a back room, Silva stood over the bodies of several unconscious men. Roma burst in distressed, shouting that she had warned him this was a terrible idea, feigning ignorance. Silva simply asked who the defeated men were. He then turned to her, his voice low and serious. He confirmed her fears, stating they were likely sent by Tyron. He cautioned her to be careful from now on and to ensure no one saw them together. He approached a bet encounter, his face hidden by a hood, declaring his intention to place a massive bet on himself to win. The clerk behind the counter stared, stunned by his boldness. With the wager placed, the scene shifted to the grand arena, where the stands were filled with a sea of spectators eagerly anticipating the main event. Down in the center of that arena, the 7th match was announced. Tyron the Despicable versus Silva Pierce. The two fighters locked eyes, a palpable tension filling the air. Tyron broke the silence, addressing Silva as boy, and mockingly praising him for making it this far. He acknowledged Silva's strength as a challenger, then made an offer. If Silva retracted his insults and swore loyalty, Tyron might consider sparing him a beating so severe he'd never walk again. With a sharp grin, Silva thanked him for the offer, but firmly declined. He explained that his popularity would plummet if people thought he was allied with a troll. The insult struck a nerve, Tyron's expression darkening as he claimed to be a merciful man. Willing to pretend he hadn't heard the remark, he issued one final command: bow and swear loyalty. Unimpressed, Silva dismissed the theatrics as a waste of time. He told Tyron to cut the nonsense and attack him already, mockingly asking if his hands were just for show. The final taunt pushed Tyron over the edge, roaring that since Silva had bared his fangs, he could die right there. Tyron sprung his trap, and instantly, two large, complex magic circles flared to life on the arena floor. His eyes widened in sudden realization. The magic circles must have been buried in the arena and set up beforehand. The nature of the trap became evident. One circle created a binding field to slow him down, while the other generated a vulnerability field to lower his physical defense. Meanwhile, Tyron was being buffed by his own magicians. Silva gritted his teeth, acknowledging the extensive precautions taken against him. He remained perfectly still within the magical bindings as Tyron the Wicked charged, slamming a powerful fist into the arena floor. The stone shattered under the impact, but the captain was nowhere to be seen. From the stands, Roma and the player watched with wide, concerned eyes. The massive warrior panted heavily from the exertion, glaring at the empty space. He bellowed a challenge, demanding to know what the piece of trash would do now against the strongest, insisting he acknowledged power. In response to the taunt, Silva appeared behind him, completely unharmed and exuding confidence. He casually asked if Tyron was already finished with his attack. Iron froze, his mind racing. He calculated the damage per second of his rush, factoring in the defense debuff from the magic circle. Even when subtracting the value of Silva's passive skill, the numbers didn't add up. He couldn't comprehend how his opponent was still standing. With a slight wince, Silva confirmed he felt the attack, remarking that he now understood what taking exactly 100 damage felt like. Tyron stared in disbelief, shouting that it was impossible for him to still be upright. He then explained that he had wanted to perform a damage test for some time, but finding anyone capable of actually hurting him had proven difficult. He mockingly thanked Tyron, stating that his cheap tricks provided some valuable data. As Tyron stammered in confusion, Silva's expression hardened. His eyes gleamed with predatory intent as he clarified that Tyron was just the kind of insignificant opponent he needed for his experiment. The insult pushed Tyron over the edge, and he roared that there was no way he could lose. In response, a powerful aura erupted around Silva as he let out a battle cry of his own. From that surge of energy, a colossal fist made of rock and earth materialized in the air and slammed downward onto Tyron, lifting the massive man off his feet with sheer force. He crashed into the arena floor, the stone cracking and shattering violently from the impact. A short distance away, Silva stood perfectly composed, the summoner of the devastating blow. He stood over the wreckage, his back to the stunned crowd. In the arena below, Tyron's body lay motionless amidst the shattered earth. From the stands, a young man watched, utterly speechless at the swift and brutal conclusion. The shock was palpable. Roma Ferris stared, her expression a mix of disbelief and horror. A voice began to echo through the silent arena, making the official declaration: Grandmaster Tyron had lost consciousness and was unable to continue the fight. The announcement reached its peak, booming for all to hear. The winner was Silva Pierce. A confident, predatory smirk spread across Silva's face as he accepted his victory. In a flurry of banknotes, Roma cheered with unrestrained joy, tossing the money into the air. Overwhelmed, she admitted she had never seen so much wealth before. From his seat, the player called out to get her attention, and she quickly apologized, promising to clean up the mess. He sighed with a sense of resignation. It can't be helped, he thought, acknowledging that most people would never see such a sum in their entire lives. Roma baffled him. She questioned how he could remain so calm with 100 million G scattered on the floor, especially while staying in a cheap inn and eating tough jerky. Unfazed, he simply replied that he didn't mind the jerky. She insisted that since they were in the casino city, they should be living lavishly in a fancy inn. He dismissed the idea, explaining that such a place was too far from the merchant's district and would be a waste of time. Roma's imagination ran wild as she described the life he could lead. With his wealth, he could do anything he desired, be known as a hero, and enjoy fine food while surrounded by beautiful women. Her tone shifted to one of pure awe. She asked why he was so powerful, declaring him the strongest person in the world, stronger than anyone she had ever seen. He clearly stated that he wasn't here to relax or indulge. He had, in his words, a mountain of tasks to complete. Confused, she echoed his phrase, a mountain of tasks. Brishan turned serious. He confirmed her suspicion, stating that while he wouldn't call it a mission, he indeed had a greater purpose. A revelation struck Roma with the force of a thunderclap. Her eyes sparkled with admiration as she declared his dedication impressive. She realized he wasn't swayed by greed or desire, but was focused on a grander goal. For her, meeting him was the greatest thing that had ever happened. Completely overwhelmed by her respect for him, she prostrated herself on the floor. With her forehead pressed to the wooden planks, she made a solemn request to accompany him to the very end of his journey. Her plea lingered in the air as the player considered her. He reminded her of her own ambitions, questioning why she wouldn't want to open her own store in the capital, a dream she could now easily achieve with her share of the winnings. Here she is, misjudging his capabilities. Yet from her position on the ground, she insists otherwise, pleading for him to accept. With a weary sigh, he finally gives in. Before she can respond further, he leans closer, gently lifting her chin and asking her to repeat her origin. Startled, she stutters that she hails from Madden Village, a small place known for its sheep and cows. His mind races back to the village she mentioned, Maiden Village. He remembers it from countless game sessions, an inconsequential town, not even marked on the map, devoid of quests or shops. His only memory is the endless grind of harvesting sheep for resources. Shifting back to the present, he pulls out a piece of paper with the letters B and C scrawled on it. He extends it, asking if she can decipher it. She squints, utterly perplexed, wondering if it's a foreign language. She confirms her inability to read the letters. Internally, he concludes his assessment. He had suspected she might be a reincarnator like him, but this proves she's just an ordinary character. She remains baffled by his odd line of questioning. With the test concluded, he lays down his final conditions. He asks if she will follow his orders from now on, and if she promises not to regret her decision, regardless of how perilous their journey becomes. With unwavering determination, she agrees, stating her mind is set. He accepts her pledge, cautioning her that he won't take responsibility for what may happen. Her face lights up with pure joy. She thanks him profusely and vows to be as helpful as possible. As she beams, he lets out a soft sigh. Energized, she immediately inquires about their next steps. He observes her with a faint smile, thinking to himself, he stands to gain nothing by leaving her behind, and this seemingly average background character might just hold the key to a new strategy for winning the game. She listens intently as Roma Firas excitedly speculates about their upcoming mission. Perhaps they are headed to another city to vanquish evil, or maybe to slay a colossal monster. He interrupts her heroic daydreams, clarifying that their actual destination is far from that. Rather than embarking on a grand adventure, their task for the day is much more ordinary, a delightful shopping spree in a lively town square. He instructs her to purchase everything he mentioned earlier, reassuring her not to fret about the cost and to simply grab whatever she can. With the instructions given, he decides they will part ways here, watching as she ventures into the market. Now alone, His true goal sharpens into focus, acquiring gear for the next phase. He contemplates the mechanics of the world, how equipment varies in rarity, and can be enchanted with random effects using magic stones. Since each item can only hold up to 6 effects, the odds of crafting an optimal piece are incredibly slim. His search concludes as his gaze lands on a specific item in the shop. He inspects his discovery, a plain one-handed sword. It's an unremarkable weapon capable of holding just 1 enchantment, yet it's priced surprisingly high for its limited potential. The shopkeeper quotes a price of 200,000 G. The player knows that while enchanting is typically random, having sufficient funds guarantees a desired effect. Given his time constraints, this is the ideal solution. He places a heavy pouch on the counter and demands the sale. With his purchase secured, he exits the shop and strides through the town's cobblestone streets, his expression serious and determined. A wave of fatigue washes over him. He realizes he hasn't had a moment's rest since arriving in this world. Though he yearns to pause, he knows there's still much to accomplish today. His path leads him to a sturdy wooden door tucked away in a quiet alley. Before he can knock, a voice from a small window challenges him, demanding to know his purpose. He confronts the hooded figure, recognizing them as the informant. He questions their activities, suggesting they might be secretly selling strawberry daifuku, to which the figure retorts that nobody calls them that. But informants widen their eyes in surprise before asking what he wishes to know. With a steady gaze, he states his intent. He seeks information about the syndicate. The hooded figure immediately denies any knowledge of the syndicate, claiming to have nothing to offer and instructing him to look elsewhere. The player observes them, his expression revealing his skepticism. He turns as if to leave, recalling an old game mechanic. One had to visit the informant repeatedly to gain their trust and progress the quest. Instead of walking away, he halts and places a hand on the wall, activating the skill, Lightning Blink. In an instant, he teleports through the solid wall, appearing directly inside the informant's concealed room. The informant recoils in shock, demanding to know how he entered. The player calmly replies that this isn't how to treat a customer. Now inside, he presses his advantage, stating he knows what the informant knows and is willing to pay the fee. Panicked, the informant insists they know nothing and pleads for him to leave. The player then reveals his trump card, questioning how the informant, the new king of the arena, could possibly lack such knowledge. Having obtained the information, he tosses a pouch of money to the informant, instructing them to use it to escape. Grasping the payment, the informant warns him to steer clear of the syndicate if he values his life before scurrying away into a dark alley. Alone once more, he reflects on the exchange. He already anticipated the informant's response. The key step was asking them after achieving a certain level of fame. He believes he has met the necessary conditions, though a sliver of doubt lingers. His thoughts are interrupted as a swirling vortex of dark energy manifests and crashes into a nearby building, resulting in a violent explosion. He stares wide-eyed at the sudden devastation. He watches as a figure emerges from the wreckage, their voice cold and clear, issuing a chilling warning. Anyone who investigates the faceless ones will face death. The assailant stands revealed, a cloaked figure with dark hair and glasses, a mask obscuring their lower face, ready for battle. As the figure lunges, he dodges, shouting a warning. He instantly recognizes the situation. This is the main quest involving the Faceless Conspiracy. The attacker is one of Tyron's troublesome subordinates, boasting high stats and wielding 2 swords. He understands his mission is to uncover the Syndicate's secret activities and halt their progress. The attacker closes in, and he identifies their unique weapon, Dark Moon, a pair of blades named Waxing Moon and Waning Moon. He recalls the properties of the right-hand blade, the Waxing Moon. It inflicts a bleeding status condition that, unlike most, can stack repeatedly. The left-hand blade, the Waning Moon, inflicts increased damage for every stack of bleeding applied to an opponent. He knows with grim certainty that if he takes even a single hit, the damage will escalate uncontrollably. As the assassin leaps down from above, he curses the situation. The entire scenario feels intentionally malicious, forcing him to confront such a troublesome foe in a cramped alley with no room to maneuver. He throws himself to the side, narrowly evading the attack as the assassin's blades shatter the stone ground where he had just stood. The assassin coolly tells him to calm down, but he knows better. He retorts that they clearly have no intention of listening. He leaps back again, creating distance. He muses that simply defeating them would be easy, but his objectives are more intricate. He needs them intact for the future. Capturing them unharmed is a tall order, especially since they would teleport away at the slightest hint of danger. He resolves that he has no choice. Letting his opponent escape would ruin all his plans. Sweat beads on his brow as he stares down the masked figure, asking if they are ready for this. The assassin's eyes narrow, poised for action. The assassin lunges forward down the narrow alley. Unfazed, he spreads his arms with a wild grin, taunting them. He acknowledges they've been aiming for his neck the whole time, and for their persistence, offers them a single chance to strike. In a flash, the assassin closes the distance, but he is prepared. He catches the attack, gripping his opponent's arm firmly. A grimace of pain crosses his face from the impact, but he grits his teeth, declaring that he's finally caught them. Before they can recover, he twists his body, executing a powerful judo throw that sends the assassin crashing to the ground. He coughs, catching his breath, reflecting that his old judo training has just come in handy. With his opponent subdued, he reaches down and removes their mask, revealing the face of a young woman, tears streaming from her wide, frightened eyes. He speaks softly, expressing pity that she had to wear such a thing, and promising she would feel better soon. His gaze then falls upon a trickle of blood. The woman's eyes are vacant, unfocused. She begins to murmur a strange, disjointed litany of words and images, junctions and regret, impulse, pinwheels, puddles of blood, flower fields, and finally, coming home. Her voice is filled with sorrowful confusion. Her gaze remains distant, one of her pupils appearing unnervingly mechanical. With a final chilling whisper, she utters a single phrase, "The abyss." The scene seems to shift. He now leans over her, his expression intense as he tries to rouse her from a trance. He calls her name, "Wake up, Mitsuki. It's morning." Her eyes flutter open, filled with confusion. She looks up at him, dazed, and asks a question that stops him cold. Oni Ai-chan. His own eyes widen in utter shock and disbelief. On the floor of a dilapidated building, Silva Pierce looks up at the hooded assassin, a dark wound visible on his chest. He remarks that his little sister has caused him a lot of trouble. The assassin, Mitsuki, apologizes meekly before her eyes widen in confusion, asking why her own Ai-chan is even there. His expression sharpens. He reassures her not to fret and to follow his instructions, reminding her this has always been their dynamic. Mitsuki's face twists in shock and disbelief. Mitsuki, a member of the Faceless Syndicate's assassin unit, is one of their engineered human weapons, equipped with extraordinary abilities that ensure she can eliminate any target. Silva's words trigger a response. He employs a brainwashing technique, making anyone who utters certain phrases appear as her older brother, compelling her to obey without question. He thinks to himself that while this method is annoying, he has gained a dependable ally. After all, Mitsuki ranks high among assassins, starting at level 40. His plan is straightforward. At this point, he seeks only the most powerful allies. Turning to the now dazed Mitsuki, he offers her candy, to which she responds with a cheerful smile. Her demeanor shifts. She clings to him, asking what their next move is, eagerly offering to eliminate someone for him. Her face radiates pure, devoted joy. He looks down at her calmly, telling her she no longer needs to kill. Mitsuki appears taken aback by this new commitment. Tom Facade's composure shatters as a sharp pain grips his chest. Mitsuki's cheerful expression vanishes, replaced by concern as she asks if he's all right. He grits his teeth, insisting they must return to the end. He retrieves a small container, preparing a remedy. The bleeding from the Dark Moon ability inflicts severe damage, and even with his high endurance, he can't handle it alone. Still, he turns to Mitsuki, assuring her he's fine and it's nothing to worry about. He stumbles, clutching his side as a sharp pain surges through him. He vows never to repeat whatever caused this. The effort overwhelms him, and he collapses onto a pile of sacks, crying out in exhaustion. Lying there, he stares at the ceiling, reflecting that despite the past 3 days going well, he wonders if he's finally earned a moment of peace. He tells Mitsuki she can rest too, gesturing to a nearby chair. Surprised by the offer, she quietly accepts. Her silence is shattered when a young woman with braided hair bursts in, cheerfully announcing her return. She proudly states that on her first day as a henchman, she performed perfectly, only to stop short upon seeing Mitsuki, demanding to know who the stranger is. The newcomer stares in shock as Mitsuki turns to Silva, asking who this noisy girl is, referring to him as Oni Aicho. The newcomer, flustered, quickly apologizes, thinking she has interrupted something inappropriate. Silva interjects, telling her not to misinterpret the situation, and formally introduces the quiet figure as his little sister, Mitsuki. Stunned by the revelation, the girl explains she ran into Mitsuki while shopping and offers another flustered apology. She then gathers herself and bows deeply, introducing herself as Roma, the loyal henchman of her iniqui, expressing her hope for a good relationship. Mitsuki looks down at the bowing girl, her expression unreadable as she contemplates the term henchman. With introductions complete, Roma proudly presents a sack filled with dark, multifaceted gems, eagerly asking for feedback on her haul. She explains that, as instructed, she visited every material store in the city, buying out their entire stock of multifaceted gems. She puffs out her chest, proudly asking if she managed to gather a decent amount. This work, she declares, is proof of her dedication. He looks down with a faint smile, admitting that while it's a good start, it's far from sufficient. They need, he states, about 10 times that amount. Her expression crumbles, tears brimming in her eyes. He tells her she can rest for the day, but she must continue her search tomorrow, moving on to the next town if needed. Crestfallen, she meekly agrees to do her best. As she walks away, Mitsuki appears and asks why that thing is following him. Silva corrects her, stating that despite appearances, Roma has a lot of guts. He then turns to Mitsuki, telling her he will need her assistance tomorrow as well, instructing her to get a good night's sleep. She simply agrees. The scene shifts to a town square where a tall, masked figure confronts a smaller, hooded subordinate. The leader addresses them as Number 7, noting their lateness and demanding an explanation. Number 7 reports that the target was unexpectedly strong, forcing them to break their mask. They claim they brought him in alive against orders to kill because the technology he possessed was in a high combat state. The masked leader looks down at the unconscious form of Silva Pierce. They ask if Number 7 used drugs to subdue him, which the subordinate confirms. The leader narrows their eyes in thought. They realize Silva wouldn't be a problem even if he woke up, yet there's a clear hesitation in their assessment. Standing over the captive, the leader remarks that it's unusual for Number 7 to bring a target back alive, questioning if this is a first. Number 7 looks away, replying simply, "I don't remember." The hooded operative stands before their leader, who asks if their memory serves them correctly about the location. Number 7 confirms it is, but reports that they found no traces left behind. The leader turns away, stating they knew it. They then question Number 7 directly, asking if they have experienced anything unusual regarding their state of mind. Elsewhere, in a cell, the captive Silva Pierce contemplates his dire situation. He realizes this is bad. If his captors manage to overwrite his brainwashing, he'll have to fight his way out. His greatest fear, however, is that in the chaos, his companion might teleport away. The scene shifts to Mitsuki, who fiercely declares her loyalty, stating she will execute anyone her Oni Aichan commands, even a member of the syndicate. Hearing this, the masked leader seems to accept her words, instructing Number 7 to take the prisoner to the cells. A sudden crash interrupts them. The source of the noise is a man in a white cloak who grunts in pain as Number 7 slams him to the ground. He quickly recovers, however, as Mitsuki rushes to his side, asking if her Oni Aichan is all right. He reassures her that he's fine, merely commenting that the clothes he's wearing feel strange. He praises her for her concern, calling her a good girl and offering her a piece of candy as a reward. As she celebrates, he asks her to lead him to the place she mentioned. In what seems to be an earlier moment, the man in white stands at the end of a ship, suddenly alert. He demands to know who is there, only to be confronted by Number 7, poised to attack. The sound of that confrontation echoes to the masked leader's location. He and another hooded figure are startled, demanding to know what the noise is and what has happened. Returning to the prison infiltration, the man in white stands victorious over several fallen guards. He asks Mitsuki which cell they are in, and she points down the stone corridor, stating it's the one all the way in the back. They proceed to the end of the hall and find their target. Huddled on the cold floor of a dark cell is Natalia Norfolk, alone. He peers into the darkened cell, where a pair of defiant eyes meets his gaze. A voice, rough from disuse, calls out, questioning if he is a new warden and, more simply, if he is alive. The voice belongs to a young woman, shackled and gagged, sitting on the cold stone floor. Despite her condition, she makes a request for hot soup and soft bread to celebrate their meeting. He apologizes, explaining he is not with the masked guards, and offers her some food. As he does, Mitsuki peeks out from behind his cloak, cheerfully greeting Akatsuki. The prisoner's eyes widen in disbelief. Stunned, Akatsuki questions Mitsuki's presence, warning her of the danger. She hears Mitsuki say her Oni Aichan brought her, and Akatsuki's shock instantly turns to rage. She lunges forward, accusing the man of harming Mitsuki again. He calmly addresses the furious princess, urging her to calm down and reminding her he is not with the syndicate. Unconvinced, she demands to know why Mitsuki would call him her older brother. Her fury escalates as she accuses him of manipulating Mitsuki and forcing her to kill. She screams, demanding to know how many lies have been taken on his orders. He quietly admits to using brainwashing, offering no excuses. "I knew it," she cries out. He clarifies that while he doesn't know her past, he has never ordered Mitsuki to kill anyone, and never will. Akatsuki refuses to believe him, shouting that it's a lie meant to deceive and use her too. Leaning closer, his gaze remains steady. He asks if someone with eyes as clear as hers could possibly be lying. His question gives Akatsuki pause, her fiery anger momentarily replaced by doubt. The prisoner's identity is revealed. She is Akatsuki, the sixth of her kind, and Mitsuki's twin sister, another human weapon forged from the same genes. However, her emotional outburst and unique traits led her to be deemed a failure and locked away. This truth hangs heavily in the air. Akatsuki stares, wide-eyed, as a single thought pierces through her rage. Is it possible he's not lying? The masked man explains that Akatsuki possesses a skill called Live Breaker, enabling her to discern truth from falsehood just by looking into someone's eyes. This ability rendered the syndicate's brainwashing ineffective, branding her a failure. He believes that as long as his intentions are pure, he can reason with her. He then turns to Mitsuki, asking if she was ever ordered to kill. She ponders this, remembering how the last Oni Ichain ordered her to kill, while this one has not. The effort brings a cry of pain as she clutches her head. The masked man gently touches her head, advising her not to dwell on it. Witnessing this kindness, Akatsuki realizes he isn't part of the syndicate, yet she calls him a fool for daring to infiltrate alone. He simply meets her gaze, grinning confidently. He admits he might be foolish, but clarifies he's the type who rescues rebels defying orders. Facing her cell, he turns away, suspicion still etched on her face. Akatsuki demands to know his intentions. His answer is straightforward. He seeks her assistance. When she presses for details, his demeanor shifts to one of determination. He reveals his plan to seize control of the syndicate, leaving both Mitsuki and Akatsuki speechless. Before anyone can respond to his bold claim, a group of robed syndicate guards appears at the corridor's end, blocking their exit. One shouts a curse, vowing the intruder won't escape alive. The sudden arrival prompts Akatsuki to ridicule his plan, questioning if he intends to die after such a grand declaration. Unfazed, the masked man tells her to simply observe. As he speaks, Mitsuki lunges forward, intercepting the first guard with astonishing speed. In that moment, a cataclysmic surge of energy erupts from the masked man's position. The entire corridor is engulfed in a blinding, jagged light as he unleashes a single, devastating strike. The aftermath leaves the two sisters in awe. Akatsuki stares, utterly astonished by the display of might. Mitsuki, however, beams with admiration, declaring her Oni Aichan is incredible. He turns back to Akatsuki's cell. She questions why he is going to such lengths. He explains he has his reasons, but fundamentally, he needs the syndicate's power to find and defeat the true mastermind. He reiterates his request, stating plainly that he requires her assistance. He extends his hand toward the bound and gagged Akatsuki, making his request clear. He needs her help to take control of the syndicate. In response, Akatsuki sets a condition, asking him to promise her one thing. When he inquires what it is, she demands he never forces Mitsuki to kill again. He agrees without hesitation, explaining his goal is a peaceful syndicate. With a cold stare, Akatsuki warns that if he breaks this vow, she will end him herself. Having secured his promise, Akatsuki accepts. She immediately focuses on a massive shadowy beast, commanding it to surrender. Then she calls out to Mitsuki, asking for a weapon. A sword is tossed her way, and Akatsuki leaps into the air to catch it, diving headfirst into the fray. She lands gracefully, sword resting on her shoulder, a wild grin spreading across her face. Looking back at the masked man, she calls him Oni Ai-chan and declares they should work well together. Later, he stands beside Mitsuki, surveying their surroundings. He confirms with satisfaction that all the necessary elements are now in place. The scene shifts to a dark, armored figure, noting that the final battle of the DLC is imminent, a pivotal moment in their strategy that must not falter. Opposite them, Silva Pierce's expression is confident as he announces the battle against the DLC boss has begun. His confident demeanor twists into a sly grin. He poses a strange question, asking why his companion doesn't undress. He suggests she should embrace a new path and become a dancer. The request was directed at Natalia, who recoils in shock. She mutters that she accepted, but now regrets it, lamenting that even for the captain, she cannot wear something so revealing. Still flustered, she shakes her head, insisting it's impossible and far too embarrassing. Gaining her resolve, she decides to confront the captain and compel him to reconsider his absurdity. But Silva's voice interrupts, his tone suddenly devoid of humor. His expression is desperate as he calls her by name, pleading for her assistance. He implores her to swear on the silver spear. Her fist slams against the door, the handle snapping off from the force. She realizes that backing out now, after accepting, would be far too embarrassing. Having made her decision, she grips the silver spear, her gaze steady and unwavering as she begins to remove her armor. With determination, she makes her vow. To keep her promise, she will abandon the title of Not. A short while later, she steps out, her armor replaced by a dancer's revealing outfit. Apologizing for the delay, she nervously asks if this is what he desired, questioning if she truly fits this new role. From nearby, Silva's voice rings out in approval, declaring it perfect. Inside a rustic wooden building, Akatsuki exhales in relief, water cascading over her as she enjoys a much-needed bath. Nearby, the man in the white hood, mask removed, remarks to himself that it has been ages since he enjoyed a proper bath. Emerging from the bath, wrapped only in a small towel, he questions her lack of modesty for coming out like that. She retorts that she has long surpassed such feelings. After the syndicates, men inspected every inch of her. She explains that there's no way she could feel embarrassed by someone merely seeing her unclothed anymore. With a burst of energy, she turns and shouts for Mitsuki, asking her to fetch some underwear as well. Akatsuki immediately reprimands her, insisting she can't wander around naked and warning her not to let her brother see her with his lewd gaze. As Akatsuki protests, the door bursts open and a young woman with twin braids announces her return. Some cheerfully declares that she has the order, leaving Mitsuki stunned. She exclaims in disbelief, asking if her little sister has multiplied. The man calmly places a hand on Mitsuki's head, reassuring her that they are simply twins. He then turns his attention to the girl, asking if she is the subordinate he was informed about. She confirms this is correct and formally introduces herself as a Roma Virus. Katsuki warmly shakes Roma's hand, expressing it's a pleasure to meet her, and adding that her brother praised her as an excellent worker. Flustered by the compliment, Roma stammers in disbelief. Offering praise, Akatsuki's expression conveys condescending authority, instantly establishing the hierarchy between them. She then gets to the point, asking Roma if she brought what was requested. Roma eagerly confirms that she has. She explains that she traveled to every nearby city as instructed, presenting a large bag filled with dark crystalline objects. The man inspects the contents and agrees it should suffice, commending her for gathering them so quickly. Roma blushes, remarking that he's never praised her so directly before, while a curious smirk forms on her face. Her expression makes him wonder what she's thinking. Apologizing for her earlier expression, she explains that she didn't know what the items were. They're called flash stones, she reveals and demonstrates by crushing one between her gloved hands. A brilliant, painful light erupts, causing her twin to recoil in surprise. Sister, rubbing her eyes, pleads not to be startled like that again. Recovering, she asks what purpose the stones will serve. The last man steps in, thanking the twins for their hard work and instructing them to remain on standby for their next orders. Though her sister seems momentarily confused, she agrees. With their preparations complete, he announces it's time to begin. Now the final stage of their operation begins, the battle against the mastermind of the syndicate. Akatsuki is joined by a confident woman in white who offers a knowing smile. The masked man rallies his companions, declaring with excitement that it's time to conclude this prolonged conflict. Akatsuki and the woman in white enthusiastically agree. Their path leads them across an ancient stone bridge toward a cluster of weathered buildings nestled in the hills. The question lingers, could the mastermind truly be in such a place? As they draw closer, the woman in white lightly scolds the masked man. She remarks that she hadn't expected him to be such a worrywart, asking how many times she has to tell him and suggesting he could at least call her cautious. Her expression shifts to surprise as she realizes their destination isn't marked on any maps. Unfazed, he turns to her with complete confidence, assuring her that their targets are indeed here. He elaborates on his certainty, explaining that while the mastermind has several potential bases, a few key pieces of information allow one to deduce the correct location. The first crucial clue, he continues, is the location of the syndicate. Another piece of the puzzle is the specific equipment Mitsuki will possess upon their meeting. The masked man considers the capabilities of his new ally, Mitsuki. She consistently wields the unique weapon, Dark Moon, and is clad in the full faceless assassin set. However, her necklace is a variable element, randomly changing between 3 different varieties. He notes that for this occasion she wore the plain version, turning his focus to the mission. He gazes toward the dark, cavernous entrance ahead. Considering the location of the syndicate's base, he is absolutely certain the mastermind would be there. He then glances at his other companion, asking why she is dressed in such a peculiar outfit. She cheerfully dismisses his question, explaining it was simply new gear she had just acquired. Both she and Mitsuki then shower him with compliments, exclaiming how cool he looks. The masked man offers Mitsuki candy for being a good girl, an offer she accepts with a delighted yay. Her light-hearted mood suddenly shifts to one of concern. She questions his carefree demeanor, reminding him they are about to confront an incredibly powerful foe. He remains calm, announcing they have arrived and gesturing toward an old stone well. He confirms their target is right inside, leaving her in stunned disbelief. After descending into the well, the trio finds themselves in a vast circular cavern littered with the remains of pillars. As they take in the strange mausoleum, a deep voice echoes from the shadows, welcoming them as the first visitors his home has received in a long time. The woman with the headband calls out, demanding to know who is present. The masked man, however, shows no surprise, his expression hardening with recognition. He knows exactly who it is, the leader of the syndicate and the final boss of the DLC. The voice continues, its tone dripping with amusement. It addresses 2 of its creations by name and number, Experimental Body Number 6, Akatsuki, and Experimental Body Number 7, Mitsuki. The voice expresses its pleasure that they had been raised so well, only to now betray their creator. It then acknowledges another presence among them, identifying him with precision. Silva appears, the captain of the 3rd Special Task Force of the Holy Attorney Kingdom. Silva's determined face appears, his eyes fixed on the unseen enemy. Finally, the mastermind of the syndicate stepped into view. He loomed in the shadows, a dark figure cloaked in robes, gripping an ornate staff. His face remained shrouded in darkness. He gazed down at the intruders, his voice echoing with a calm authority. He commended them for locating him, adding that Silverwolf, the servant of the Eternal Tree, must possess an exceptionally keen sense of smell. The masked man's heart raced with exhilaration. This was an unprecedented turn of events. Silva typically meets his end in the prologue. The fact that bringing him here could trigger such a rare occurrence was mind-blowing. Oblivious to the masked man's thoughts, the syndicate leader continued his monologue, recognizing the sacrifices of people and stories that led them here. The masked man, however, remained unimpressed, thinking it had only been 5 days. He mentally corrected the mastermind's assumption. Just 5 days had passed since he began. Yet the imposing figure reiterated his belief that they must have endured great suffering. The mastermind disregarded him entirely, instead commending their remarkable effort in finally locating him. His tone shifted, growing ominous as he proclaimed that he too had made significant sacrifices for his grand ambition. He declared that he had finally accomplished it, and before them appeared a colossal, intricate construct, a fragment of Teleos, the god of destruction's essence. He explained that this was the anima that once plunged the world into chaos. The masked man watched, irritated, thinking the man was revealing crucial plot points too soon. His irritation intensified as the mastermind commanded the Eternal Tree's slaves to engrave the sight into their memories. He unleashed a torrent of dark energy from the anima, aimed at obliterating the great tree's circle. The power surged uncontrollably. The mastermind's body twisted and shattered as he screamed in pain, consumed by the very force he had summoned. From the chaos of his destruction, a monstrous skeletal form began to take shape. In his place now stood a grotesque entity. Its face was a terrifying skull with hollow sockets and a jaw lined with needle-like teeth. The masked man recognized it immediately, the true final boss of the DLC, a foe of immense power. He recalled the creature's details with perfect clarity. Its form was a fusion of armor and tormented skull-like visages. All its stats were absurdly high, and its attack patterns were both diverse and intricate. Moreover, he understood that the battle would be a grueling challenge. It was divided into 3 phases, each introducing more attack patterns than the last. Many of its moves were instant kills, and the entire fight was riddled with frustrating gimmicks, making it the toughest encounter in the game. He calmly explained that the monster's supposed invincibility only applied to conventional combat, a strategy he had no intention of employing. Hearing this, Akatsuki expressed her doubts, questioning if victory was truly achievable against such a formidable opponent. He merely smiled, urging her to observe. His confident demeanor starkly contrasted her uncertainty as he asked if he didn't seem like he had everything under control. Her expression shifted, a glimmer of trust replacing her fear as she nodded in agreement. Meanwhile, the monstrous anima of destruction roared its challenge, declaring that their deaths would signal the end of the Age of Light. It bellowed, demanding they heed the awakening of its world. In response, the masked man asserted that the creature wouldn't even get a turn. Commanding them to watch closely, a brilliant light erupted from the ground beneath the monster. The creature recoiled, howling in shock and pain as the blinding flash enveloped it. Furious, the anima of destruction lashed out with shadowy tendrils, striking the masked man. It roared that these minor attacks were insignificant compared to its ultimate power, yet its words were punctuated by grunts of pain. The source of the light was a simple flash stone. Its holy attribute inflicted a stun effect, typically reserved for weak, low-level monsters. However, due to the anima of destruction's absorption of darkness, it was uniquely susceptible. The stun was brief, lasting only 0.75 seconds, with an activation time of 0.4 seconds, making a continuous stun nearly impossible during combat. But this was exactly his plan. He revealed that every piece of his gear was enchanted for increased attack speed. Combined with his class and skills, he gained a 200% boost, allowing him to strike 3 times faster than usual. This incredible speed created just enough of a window for him to land an attack and immediately deploy another flash stone, establishing a perfect, inescapable loop. The anima of destruction could only roar in disbelief, unable to fathom that such a ludicrous fighting method could exist. He grinned, confidently asserting that there was indeed a way to achieve victory. He then unveiled the sheer magnitude of his preparation, 431 flash stones in total. The syndicate mastermind could only recoil in shock, stammering at the figure. With a piercing gaze, the masked man challenged his opponent to withstand the impending onslaught. The plan had been meticulously crafted. Akatsuki recalled her initial estimate, thinking she would only need around 300 stones. She smiled, realizing Roma had far exceeded expectations in gathering them. Back in the heat of battle, the syndicate mastermind grunted, ensnared by the relentless flashes of light. He snarled at his adversary, warning him not to get carried away. In a desperate act, he summoned ancestral spirits, commanding them to crush his foes. From the fractured ground, skeletal figures in dark robes began to rise, phantoms of past masterminds known for their formidable prowess. The masked man's expression tightened at the sight of the new arrivals, but his confidence remained unshaken. "Too bad," he declared. His words were not mere bravado. 2 more figures emerged from the shadows, their expressions calm and ready. The young man with messy hair smiled, announcing they had a plan for these summoned phantoms as well. Within a crystalline cavern, a skeletal phantom in a tattered robe rose, calling upon its ancestors to annihilate its enemies. Facing the undead creature, the woman with the headband smiled confidently, stating they had already accounted for this threat. Beside her, the messy-haired youth let out a battle cry and charged forward. This might be easier than anticipated, and her companion agreed, finding the fight enjoyable. Their confidence stemmed from prior knowledge. They had been briefed on the timing and order in which the illusions of past leaders would emerge from the scattered tombstones, allowing them to seal the phantoms as they appeared. During the trial, Silva faced his own monstrous adversaries. One of the phantoms questioned his methods, asking if he had any pride as a knight. Silva scoffed at the idea, declaring that pride was a joke. In battle, he insisted, the only thing that mattered was timing. He charged down a dark, jagged corridor, ready for the challenge. The creature confronted the final illusion, a grotesque beast with multiple eyes. As it fell, the creature lamented its defeat, unable to believe the Hope Bloodline's power was being extinguished. With a final, desperate roar, it was obliterated in a massive explosion. As the dust settled, the now empty circular arena was revealed. Later, Silva wiped the sweat from his brow, commenting on the grueling battle. The messy-haired youth expressed disbelief at their easy victory, but the woman with the headband simply smiled, feeling vindicated. Silva interrupted, insisting they should retrieve their prize first. The objective lay half buried in the ground. With its retrieval, he announced that the mission was complete. It was an ornate staff identified as the one wielded by the Syndicate's mastermind. This staff served as a communication device to issue orders to the organization's various divisions. With it, the entire syndicate could be controlled from the shadows. Holding the staff, Silva grinned, declaring that the syndicate takeover was now complete. The woman with the headband looked on thoughtfully, pondering their next move. Below them, their allies stood ready, awaiting new orders. He remained silent for a moment, his expression inscrutable, prompting both Mitsuki and Akatsuki to inquire about his thoughts. He explained that, as he must have mentioned earlier, he had once been the captain of a national army unit. Before he could elaborate, Mitsuki cheerfully approached him, calling him Big Bro and asking where they were headed next. She announced she had a request for both him and Akatsuki. Taken aback by her casual address, he corrected her that he was a captain, not a brother. He then formally invited both her and Akatsuki to join his unit. Mitsuki, however, seemed confused by the distinction, insisting that Big Bro is Big Bro and calling him weird. He wondered aloud, flustered, if her brainwashing had truly worn off. Akatsuki, observing the exchange, suggested it was more likely a mental defense mechanism kicking in, a concept she had learned about. He considered another possibility. Perhaps Mitsuki simply liked him. Mitsuki explained that since breaking the brainwashing made it hard to face reality, her subconscious decided it was easier to see him as a big brother. Akatsuki, tired of the act, told Mitsuki not to act like she was leaving them, reminding her they still needed their strength. Then, with a knowing smile, she too called him Big Bro. With the conversation taking a strange turn, he sighed in exasperation. Calling out to Mitsuki, he announced they were heading back. They arrived at the entrance of a dark cave. With newfound resolve, he declared he wouldn't go easy on his little sisters and warned them to prepare for what lay ahead. Both Mitsuki and Akatsuki cheered in enthusiastic agreement. Their excitement was palpable, for they now had a clear objective: to harness the power of the syndicate. With this power, they could swiftly enhance the strength of all their allies, who now stood assembled and ready for the next phase of their plan. He moved forward with grim determination, declaring that this time they would turn the enemy's power against them and advance to the next stage. Ahead lies a dim, rugged tunnel that opens into a sprawling cavern filled with an unusual thick grove. Kyle and Mia proceed cautiously, but Akatsuki suddenly calls for them to halt. She grumbles about how irritating it is when people stop so suddenly. Kyle apologizes, but another soldier chimes in, reminding Akatsuki that she was the one who fled the barracks. Defensively, Akatsuki snaps that this isn't how it was meant to unfold. Turning to Kyle, she asserts that she never requested his assistance, leaving him shocked and at a loss for words. Mia steps in between them, attempting to calm the situation. She argues that fighting won't help, and they need to escape together. Kyle agrees but mutters about her abrasive tone, prompting Mia to urge for peace. Their argument is cut short as a monstrous black sludge creature emerges from a crevice in the cavern wall. Mia realizes with dread that their noise has drawn it, putting them all in serious peril. Kyle bows his head, quickly apologizing and admitting his mistake regarding the map. He readies the spear given to him by the captain, stating he will use it if needed. Akatsuki scoffs, questioning whether his skills can match the impressive weapon he wields. His patience finally breaks. Kyle grits his teeth in anger, yelling at Akatsuki for her incessant chatter. Meanwhile, an exasperated Mia yells at both of them to stop. He and his friends trudge through the oppressive darkness of a long stone corridor. Akatsuki, sounding weary, wondered how long they had been walking, sighing that it felt like an entire day. Suddenly he spotted a glimmer of light ahead and urged the others to look. The glimmer expanded into a bright circular opening high above, starkly contrasting the suffocating darkness of the deep shaft. Upon reaching the top, they encountered a rough, earthen ceiling blocking their way. With a grunt, he pressed his hand against the barrier, testing its strength as Mia and Akatsuki observed. He poured all his strength into the effort, muscles straining and teeth clenched with a determined shout. He resolved to push just a bit harder, his fist digging into the soil and roots above. The barrier finally gave way, and he tumbled onto the grassy floor of a sunlit forest, lying there to catch his breath. He stammered in relief that he had succeeded. He sprang to his feet, arms wide in triumph, shouting joyfully that he had finally escaped. From below, in the darkness of the hole, Mia expressed disbelief that they had truly made it out. Akatsuki, however, smiled with relief, confirming they were on the surface and promising to lower a rope for them. Mia, however, urged Akatsuki to climb first, insisting she was fine. After Mia pulled herself out, Kyle, now resting on the ground, chided her for taking her time. She shot back that as a military member, he, a civilian, should have gone up before her. Unimpressed, he retorted that if she had time to argue, she had time to climb. Now free, Akatsuki stretched joyfully, exclaiming how wonderful it felt to see the sun after so long. Kyle turned to Mia with a smirk, teasingly asking if she had really let a mere civilian persuade her. He brushed off their earlier exchange, noting that Leia had told him to go first anyway. From behind, Akatsuki chimed in that she would help too. She dashed to catch up. Mia told her to stop calling her Hawk. Kyle agreed with Mia, emphasizing that they needed to figure out where they were. Their attention was drawn to the expansive landscape before them, a dense forest overshadowed by the colossal skeletal remains of dragons. Noticing Akatsuki still on the ground, Kyle offered her a hand. She accepted it, her expression unreadable as she quietly thanked him. She immediately winced, complaining that her hands were too sore to hold anything. Kyle glanced over, concern flickering across his face. He asked to see her hands. When she questioned why, he simply insisted she show him. Instead of revealing her own hands, she took his. Mia muttered her annoyance at the display. Akatsuki then began an incantation, calling upon the eternal ring of space and time to summon past moments. A glowing sphere of energy formed between her palms as Kyle stared in shock, realizing he was witnessing magic. The light faded, revealing Kyle's hand completely healed. Even an old scar had vanished. He asked if it was healing magic, and Akatsuki confirmed it was something similar. She told him not to thank her, as she was merely repaying him for pulling her up. Despite her kindness, he muttered that she lacked any cute qualities. Mia overheard and asked what he said, but before they could argue, Akatsuki interrupted, urging them to stop bickering and focus on figuring out their location. Her plea was interrupted as a monstrous, multi-eyed creature with a gaping maw erupted from the very hole they had just escaped. Mia screamed a warning for the others to get away from the hole immediately. She stared in horror at the creature emerging from the tunnel. It was the same kind of beast from before, a planet WRM, but this one was far too large. Something was terribly amiss. Her disbelief gave way as Kyle steeled himself for battle. He told her they had no choice but to confront it, reminding her that as part of the 3rd Special Operations Unit, a monster like this was nothing. He ordered her to prepare her spear. He charged forward, declaring he would take the beast down himself. The creature lunged, its massive form hurtling toward him as Mia watched, frozen in fear. The beast's attack was too swift. It struck, sending Mia crashing to the ground. Kyle shouted her name in a long cry. As she lay helpless, the monster loomed over her, But before it could strike, a powerful spell erupted from an unseen source. Magical chains and sigils burst from the ground, binding the creature in a field of stasis. The magic originated from a woman in a white cloak. Mia looked at her, stunned, and uttered a name in disbelief. Raya. The woman ignored her, shouting for Mia to run while she held the beast back. She began to comply, but a sudden movement caught her eye. She screamed a warning to the woman in white. "Raya, on your left!" as the beast's massive tail whipped around, breaking free from the magical restraints. The woman in white froze, her eyes wide with shock. Just as the tail was about to connect, a flash of light and a crackle of energy filled the air. A voice shouted a technique, "Lightning blink!" A man in a white mask appeared in a blur of motion, intercepting the beast's tail with a powerful electrified kick. The impact shattered the ground as he shielded the woman from the blow, much to Mia's astonishment. Before the confrontation could continue, another group arrived. A man in captain's armor, Silva Piers, called out, asking if they were all right. Kyle, surprised, recognized him as his captain. Silva told them they could talk later, his focus shifting to the immediate threat. He stood with his allies, a united front against the colossal tunnel beast. As the creature let out a deafening roar, the masked man in white vaulted into the air, rallying them with a cry to take down the monster. In a sunlit forest, Kyle Transient and Mia Hawkeye stood guard over a group of terrified children as a monstrous, single-eyed beast loomed before them. Watching from a hidden vantage point, the masked man in white assessed the situation. He declared the monster weak, confident that as members of the Special Forces, they could defeat it. Everything he noted was going according to plan. The masked man calmly stated that the right moment to intervene had not yet arrived, despite the clear danger. Roma was bewildered by his talk of a right moment, while Silva shuddered, remarking on the creepiness of the creature's tentacles. The man quickly covered Roma's mouth, ordering her to be quiet. His mind raced as he recognized the scene before him. This was the final part of the deserting Raya event from the game. He recalled that in the original story, Silva was the one who rescued Mia just in time. This moment was critical, as witnessing her abilities propelled the narrative forward. He knew Mia was the reincarnation of a legendary sage, the only one capable of using dimensional magic. His internal calculations continued. Kyle saving Mia was an integral step toward their future romance, and interfering at the wrong moment could create complications. Silva, overhearing fragments, asked who these people were. The masked man explained that Kyle was Silva's subordinate and the future hero of the world, suggesting that earning points by saving him now would be a wise investment. Silva was utterly baffled by the cold, outrageous logic. Finally, Mia cried out as a massive, intricate magic circle materialized, casting a spell, stasis. The beast's tentacles froze in place. Recognizing the spell, the masked man immediately shouted for Suki and Akatsuki to move in. Roma looked on, startled by the abrupt command. As he watched, he realized with alarm that Kyle was much farther from Mia than he should be. He wondered if this was a side effect of the spear he had given Kyle, which, by enhancing his strength, altered his position in the fight. This was a disastrous deviation. The monster would reach Mia before Kyle could. Deciding he had no other choice, he prepared to act, invoking a skill, Lightning Blink. He appeared between Mia and the monster, deflecting its attack. He called out, asking if they were all right. Kyle stared in shock, crying out, "Captain, why are you guys here?" The masked man cut him off, saying they would talk later. Their priority was to defeat the beast. Mia could only stare, stunned at having been saved by a complete stranger. Internally, the masked man cursed his intervention. Realizing this was a make-or-break scenario, he had now complicated things. He resolved to figure out his next move after the battle. Just then, Mitsuki and Akatsuki arrived. Mitsuki confirmed, "Got it." He turned to them, remarking dryly that they certainly enjoyed putting their sisters to work. In that moment, the monster let out a piercing shriek. Silva Piers launched himself into the air, descending rapidly toward the beast, determined to use the least amount of power necessary to end this. He brought his blade down with devastating force, roaring the name of his attack. Judgment! The impact shattered the ground, engulfing the shrieking monster in a wave of raw power. A powerful strike lands, unleashing a shockwave throughout the vicinity. The impact sends him, Akatsuki, and Mitsuki reeling as the tunnel beast staggers. The beast endures the brutal blow, still standing. Its body is grotesquely injured but not defeated. Kyle stares in shock at its tenacity. From the ground, Akatsuki shouts, identifying him as the brown-red spear wielder and urging him to prepare for the final blow. He struggles to rise, his body protesting from the earlier chaos. The masked figure observes from afar, pleased that this segment of the event unfolded well, allowing Kyle to earn experience points without interference. His attention shifts to Akatsuki, whose flushed face confuses him. Meanwhile, Kyle rushes to Mia, nervously checking on her well-being. She reassures him, explaining that Raya came to her aid. The masked man instantly recognizes this moment as the crucial scene where Raya opens up to Kyle. She stutters, insisting she's perfectly fine. Kyle then turns to the masked figure, still believing him to be Raya, and begins to express his gratitude for saving Mia. Panic floods the masked man. This is a catastrophe. He frantically thinks about how to restore the original storyline. She awkwardly accepts Kyle's thanks before inquiring about the masked man's identity. Her flustered demeanor baffles him. Before he can process it, Silva Pierce steps in, reprimanding Akatsuki for her actions and clarifying he didn't save her for her own sake. Mitsuki formally introduces him as Captain Silva Pierce of the 3rd Special Task Force. He expresses his gratitude to the captain for the timely rescue, then apologizes for violating the force's rules, stating he is ready to face any consequences. Silva brushes off the apology for now, indicating they will discuss it later at the barracks. His gaze, however, sharpens on Akatsuki. He speaks directly to her, stating that while he doesn't grasp why she fled, he needs her to return to the barracks for questions about her magic. The masked man internally sighs at the familiar, game-like flow of the conversation. To his surprise, Akatsuki eagerly agrees, promising to go anywhere and answer all his inquiries. Silva's immediate compliance leaves him momentarily speechless. A short distance away, Kyle offers a weary Mia his shoulder for support. Observing them, Roma comments to Mitsuki on how well they pair together. Mitsuki, however, gestures toward the other duo, questioning the odd expression on Silva's face. He laughs it off, telling Mitsuki to fetch Roma and the horse since they are heading to the capital next. Mitsuki agrees and departs, while Akatsuki quietly apologizes to Silva. The masked man watches, his mind racing. He knows he must find a way to rectify this deviation in the story once they return to the barracks. Caught off guard when Akatsuki Shiai Lee asks what to call him, suggesting either Ilvasan or Captain. Noticing her flustered state, he grins and replies that either option works. She opts for Captain for now, letting out a small, joyful laugh. Despite her cheer, frustration brews in his mind. This isn't right. Akatsuki was never meant to be this type of character, and her maidenly gaze, which should have been directed at Kyle, is solely focused on him. He realizes with dawning horror that he has usurped the hero's rightful place. Meanwhile, in an office within the barracks, the real Silva Pierce addresses Kyle. He begins by emphasizing that Kyle's safety is paramount. However, he sternly adds that given the circumstances, he cannot commend Kyle for breaking the rules and acting independently, warning that such a mistake could have dire consequences. He questions why Kyle didn't at least inform Natalia. Kyle explains that he felt compelled to act in that manner to prevent anyone from chasing them immediately. Silva presses further, asking if Carl genuinely believed it was the right choice, even if it meant breaking their rules. With unwavering conviction, Carl affirms that he did. Hearing his subordinate's resolute answer, Silva's expression softens slightly. He concedes that it can't be helped. Rising from his desk, he acknowledges that all's well that ends well, but reminds Kyle that he jeopardized 2 lives. He adds that if Kyle hadn't pursued Raya, she could have faced even greater peril. He continues his advice, telling Kyle that the danger arose because he lacked strength. If he feels shame, it should be for breaking the rules, not for following his beliefs. Silva asserts that one should never be ashamed of doing what they believe is right, even if the entire world, the law, or the prophecies of the eternal tree oppose them. His counsel culminates in a powerful directive. If Kyle ever finds himself in a similar situation, he must prioritize his own heart above all else. Naturally, he must also be ready to accept the consequences. This, Silva concludes, is all he has to convey as one man to another. Deeply moved, Kyle shouts his understanding, vowing to remember the last lesson. Shifting back to the role of a captain giving orders, Silva assigns Kyle cleaning duty as punishment for breaking the rules and endangering his comrades. Additionally, starting the next day, he will undergo a special training course designed to make his life miserable. Kyle accepts the punishment without protest and is formally dismissed. Elsewhere, the disguised observer reflects on the exchange. He knows Silva's words are crucial and will significantly impact Kyle's future, but finds acting out these game-like scenes to be incredibly tense. His thoughts are interrupted as Akatsuki appears in the doorway, requesting a moment of his time. He dismissively suggests she ask Natalia if she needs something, but Akatsuki clarifies that her request is different. He finds himself in a tricky situation as Akatsuki, slightly blushing, presents two different uniform styles and asks which one he prefers as her captain. The question seems innocent, but he immediately senses the potential pitfalls, realizing there's no substantial difference between the two options. His mind races with catastrophic possibilities. If he gives the wrong answer and dampens her mood, he fears the entire world could be at stake. As he hesitates, Akatsuki eagerly declares that his opinion is the only one that matters. Just then, a calm voice interrupts, asking for a moment of their time. The interruption comes from a striking woman in elaborate black and white robes. She addresses him directly, feigning surprise at his presence in her office, playfully asking if he's there to invite her on a date. Before he can respond, she dismisses the idea, stating she has come to collect a report on a recent disaster. This woman is no ordinary official. She is known as the Priestess of the Eternal Tree, the sole individual apart from the God King to receive prophecies directly from it. He understands that this pious and professional demeanor is merely one aspect of her, a carefully crafted facade. Her true name is Neneturnia. And with that name comes a chilling revelation. A sinister smile spreads across her face, revealing the immense power and dark intentions hidden beneath her serene exterior. She's the ultimate antagonist of the game.